Foundation Level, Objective 1.3.1, K2. Explain the 7 testing principles. The following questions are about the 7 testing principles. You will surely get a question about the testing principles in the exam. That's why you see a testing principles question in every one of the 4 sample exams. Usually, they will give you a situation and ask which principle this situation represents or which principle was not followed in this situation. First question, you have been assigned as a tester to a team producing a new system incrementally. You have noticed that no changes have been made to the existing regression test cases for several iterations, and no new regression defects were identified. Your manager is happy, but you are not. Which testing principle explains your skepticism? This is a clear situation where tests wear out, and the same tests are repeated over and over again, as the regression test cases were never updated for several iterations. Eventually, these tests no longer find any new defects. So the correct answer is A. Some might get confused with the absence of errors fallacy, as no new errors have been discovered in this situation. However, the absence of errors is about not finding defects before checking with the customer to see if the product is really what they want or satisfies their needs. This is not the case in our situation, as the customer was not mentioned anywhere. The absence of errors fallacy is about the wrong belief that just finding and fixing a large number of defects will ensure the success of a system. The second question, one of the principles of testing states that exhaustive testing is impossible. Which of the following is an example of addressing this principle in practice? The question is asking what we should do to overcome the exhaustive testing is impossible problem. We understand that the exhaustive testing is impossible principle states that testing everything would require testing every possible variation of test inputs in all different circumstances, which is generally infeasible as there will be a practically infinite number of test cases. We know that to overcome this problem, we should be very selective in designing our test cases by using various test design techniques to select the most appropriate test cases that fit our situation. Also, test case prioritization and risk-based testing should help us focus more on our testing efforts. Let's see which option matches our thinking. Option A, creating test cases that cover every possible specified output. Testing every possible specified output will not address this problem, as we still might end up with an infinite number of outputs, or even end up with very few test cases. Imagine a system that calculates the sum of 2 numbers. How many inputs can be used to produce 100 as an output result? Many combinations can produce 100 as a result, so if we use only one combination to produce 100 as a result, the number of test cases will be very low and the coverage will be very bad. So, creating test cases that cover every possible specified output is not a good solution. Option B, documenting all possible test input variations and prioritizing these based on importance. Just trying to document all possible test input variations is incalculable and would be impractical, as it would take an infinite length of time. Option C, starting testing as early as possible with reviews and other static testing approaches. Starting testing early is a good testing practice. Still, it won't give us the time to execute an infinite number of test cases. Option D, using equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis to generate test cases. The use of test design techniques such as equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis is a good way to be selective in choosing the most suitable test cases. We will learn about test design techniques in Chapter 4. D is the correct answer. The third question. The absence of defects fallacy is one of the principles of testing. Which of the following is an example of addressing this principle in practice? Here we want to know how to solve the problem of the absence of defects fallacy principle. So, we need to make sure that the product meets the user's expectations and needs. In other words, verification of the system only is not enough, as we still need to do validation. Validation is related to end users. The only option that supports the end users is option B, which supports the end users in performing acceptance testing. This will help us make sure that the end users try the product and make sure it fits its purpose. The remaining options are not related to the absence of defects fallacy. Option A, explaining that it is not possible for testing to show the absence of defects. This is a solution to the problem of not following the first principle. Testing shows the presence, not the absence of defects. Actually, there's always confusion between three principles. Absence of defects fallacy. Testing shows the presence, not the absence of defects, and tests wear out. As in every principle, we can't find more defects. In the absence of the defects fallacy principle, you did a lot of testing. There are no defects in the software, but we were hoping you could wait and not celebrate until the end users confirm that the products meet their expectations. In the testing shows the presence, not the absence of defects, you also did a lot of testing. There are no defects in the software, but we want you to wait and not celebrate. Because not finding defects doesn't mean there are no defects. Maybe you didn't do enough testing or did more testing on areas that don't need to be tested thoroughly and let other areas without enough testing. In the tests wear out principle, you can't find more defects because you have been using the same test cases over and over again. So, we want you to update your test cases periodically. Option C, ensuring that no implementation defects remain in the delivered system. This is again related to the first principle. Testing shows the presence, not the absence of defects. No one can guarantee that no implementation defects remain in the delivered system. Option D, modifying tests that cause no failures to ensure few defects remain. This is a solution to the problem results when we don't follow the principle, tests wear out. Repeating the same tests will eventually stop finding more defects. Tests wear out again, resulting in not finding more defects, but it doesn't solve the problem related to the end users. The last question related to the 7 principles of testing is: testers use high-level test conditions to generate test cases and execute tests. Even though the test conditions remain the same, the test cases are varied each time. Which of the following principles of testing is being addressed through the variation of test cases? This is a little tricky question. The situation might be new to us because we have talked quickly about high-level or low-level test cases when we were talking about the testing principles. But we already knew about them from the course. High-level test cases mean test cases without concrete values. Something like enter age greater than 50. While low-level test cases will use specific values, we call them concrete values. Something like enter age 65. In the low-level test cases, all testers will enter 65. In the case of high-level test cases, every tester will enter a different value as long as it's greater than 50. So there are a variety of test cases when we use high-level test cases. Now, which principle talks about using a variety of test cases? Correct. Tests wear out. Option A.